40 chess. Yeah. 40 chess. 40 chess. Let's get it.
Yo, is that T-Dog?
40 chess. 40 chess. Hey. 40 chess. This a trade show. Patreon where the trades go. Tap in and watch. That's what you came for. Ain't gotta say my name. They know my name, bro.
What's good, man?
We got McNutted in Etienne. Always start off the show with a trade from them. You should always make sure that your trade is in. Patreon, why not be a Patreon? Know you wish you could spend every day with them. Tap in and say what you gon' say with them. South Harmon can fill up a stadium. Next time you log in, make sure that you bring a friend. We about to kick off, let the day begin. Go follow the socials. 40 Chess FF is posted. If your trade is an F, you get roasted. Go like and subscribe for the crew. Apple, Spotify, and the YouTube. You know Cooper got the warp too. Let us give you a walkthrough. 40 Chess. This is 40 Chess.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back into the Dynasty Trade Show. We are so glad that you are here today. Quick reminder, if you want your deals featured, patreon.com/South Harmon, $5 tier. That's where the Trade Show channel happens. That's where you can get roasted or maybe praised. I don't know. It's a toss-up every week, Adam. Are we roasting a new guy? Are we praising a new guy? Remains to be seen. But how about you, buddy? How you doing? How you doing out there? That's a nice BDG shirt. I got to get one of these, by the way. Wait, ask Nick. I mean, you're going to see him.
So I was going to actually ask you. What size
I know
shirt
it's
do you think?
extra fabric.
If they run big though, right? So Mike, this is a large. Like they run big. Ooh. So if they run big, what you let me know what size you are. I'll grab one from the office. They got a whole bunch there.
See, I can cut the extra L off, so 3XL, but I don't need the long.
But no L. There you go. Just 3
no
X's.
L. Yeah,
that's actually
no L. We ain't taking L's on the trade show.
No. Well, speaking of which, patreon.com/South Harmon. We'll get you one of these shirts, Mike. And then I want you to tell me, did I take an L? I got 2 deals for you, buddy. You know, people are out here saying we may not get trades done. It's the dead period. On the contrary, buddy. Come on. We've only been at this over 100 episodes. All right. 12-team Superflex PPR, 0.75. Mike is a best ball start 13. Rusty Tromboners. What a better way to start this off, right?
Favorite league name. Favorite.
I don't know how we beat it, frankly. Like, we'll try. We'll keep coming up with new league names, but this one just, it's one of those that makes you giggle every time you see it. What do you think of this deal here? So I'm sending away Cody. So if you look across my portfolio, Mike, if there was a way that in the lab you could put picks of like specific managers, I'm certain, although it's gone down now, that roster baiter picks on my teams are towards the top of my players owned. But I'm sending some away here. 25 first and second from roster baiter Cody's team, and then my second in 25. So still have my 25 first to work with here. I'm acquiring JT and Chris Godwin in the Rusty Tromboner Start 13 League, Mike. Where are you at on this deal?
Is roster baiter rebuilding in this league?
No. Well, you take a look on the lab.
Should he be?
He's actually one of these teams where I would say, given the pick structure he has and the team nucleus he has, he's going to make the playoffs.
So, yeah, it looks like he's, I don't know, maybe top 4 or 5-ish.
Yeah, I would just say based on the way I'm looking at this league and variance and stuff, he's going to make the playoffs. I think there's a real chance he makes the semis too. He's not the strongest team in the league, but he's
not you and I. Correct. Man, I kind of like this for you then. I had a weird feeling that maybe he had already like waved the white flag, but his team's not terrible.
The way he builds and the way he has his teams built out, this is not even the dirtiest, crustiest of contenders he has.
It's actually got some youth on it, like some attractive youth. So he could down tier. He could.
I feel like he must have done some 4D'ing. Like there's a couple times he must have acquired some youth in the offseason.
Maybe we're finally getting through to him.
I know. Isn't it cool to see growth? It's one of my favorite things.
I like this. I mean, if you really put it as like a mid or playoff, it's not bad. It's not bad for either one of you. I know Melo's definitely rebuilding here.
Yes, he is.
We out. He's out. His team is horrendous, but he's got a lot of draft capital though.
Right. Well, this gives him now an additional first and 25. Started to get the ball rolling. He gets a couple extra seconds. I think he has some other pieces that he can definitely liquidate that are warranting, draft capital, guys like DK. I was flirting around seeing if I could get DK in this deal, Ayuk. But at the end of the day, Mike, the price tag I think for those two was going to put me in a different conversation than the deal I'm sending here. I don't expect Godwin necessarily to rival DK or Ayuk in a full season, but I think for the best ball format, we're starting 13. I don't think he's like leaps and bounds. Those guys, I don't think those guys are leaps and bounds ahead of where Godwin will finish, especially Godwin going back into the slot this year. He's kind of like a sneaky, older, crusty, cheap buy for me.
If you said it was a mid to late first and a mid to late second for Jonathan Taylor, that's in the ballpark for sure. And
right.
You could probably easily make the case for Jonathan Taylor. I fully expect him now to have a pretty decent year with Anthony Richardson fully healthy and him fully healthy with that contract. So, I mean, like long-term future of him, I'm probably going to lean towards like 1 or 2 years. We'll see what we get out of him. But
sure.
He's good, man. He's good. He's been in there with the upper echelon of running backs for a while. So, then also tossing a late second in for Chris Godwin and best ball. Like, whatever you feel about Chris Godwin, that's cash. That's cash.
Yeah, I kind of view it as like whichever way you cut it, right? It's like it kind of, I think, evens out pretty well. But if you were to say a first and a second for Taylor, I think that's probably a little heavy, but probably realistically about what it cost. If you were to say only a first for Taylor and 2 seconds for Godwin, like either way, it's one side slightly heavy, but the other piece ends up being light. I think overall, the balance of the trade as far as overall values makes sense. I think in best ball start 13, Mike, you gotta have bodies everywhere. You gotta have so much depth in this type of a format. So I didn't want to go. Another reason I didn't want to go down the DK route or the Ayuk route is I'll have to probably add a first into this deal, and all of a sudden I'm going 4 assets for 2, and I was trying not to go. I didn't want to consolidate too much, even though they're just draft picks. Man,
you and I are definitely at an arms race. Now I feel like I got a counter punch. Good
we got a long time. Maybe the start of next show we'll have a Rusty Tromboners deal from Mike. That'd be pretty sweet.
Maybe we'll see. I don't know if I'm ready to push in just yet.
Yeah,
but
you don't have to. I mean,
close.
This is it's kind of the dead period too. All right, Mike. So then we got a little bit of the opposite type of thing going on in this league here. This is a deal I get done with Blitz. So 12-team Superflex PPR. This one is a 0.25 points per carry, 0.75 tight end premium as well. Interestingly enough, we stay best ball 13. This is shit 4. So, Mike, in this league, here's the way I view this. Interestingly, how the deals ended up getting done are kind of like looking at opposite images of each other in a way. This is where, in this format, I look at my team, and I think there's a scenario where I could contend, but I'm not ready to say that's for sure yet. I think I'm on the fence. But the way I'm viewing this trade is, like, if George Pickens is the piece that actually makes me a contender, I'm really not a contender, right? So this is kind of a, giving myself a little more liquid, giving myself more draft picks. If things are coming together, make some waiver wire moves, find a way to get I need to get a quarterback 2 on my team. Right now I don't even have that, and it's in a start. It's actually not a super flex. It's a 2-quarterback league for the record. So I don't have a second quarterback. I just have 1. So if I was able to kind of build out this team and I'm in the mix, maybe I push some of these picks in. But right now I feel like this is probably a fair deal on market roughly, but it's more of a give myself a little bit more outs and keep it liquid. And if I'm ready to go back in, I can trade draft picks and stuff into players later.
You and I were both kind of in the interesting spot. I don't think neither one of us, I know specifically in this league, I didn't push in right away. I went the full nuclear rebuild with all the draft picks, so I was kind of glad it worked out the way it did this year because my biggest need was quarterback, Adam. So thank you all the 24 draft picks for having 6 first-round quarterbacks to really help bolster up my quarterback room. It is a little bit different, right, because it's start 2 quarterbacks, start 3 running backs, start 4 wide receivers. Like we're animals in this one. I thought it might have been a little bit on the light side, but also like Blitz is kind of a team. No offense, Blitz, you pull the trades. A team I wouldn't mind betting against. A guy who's been going for it every year and never quite got over the hump and now has like no draft capital at all. So and an older, aging out team. Yeah, if I was in your shoes too, as much as I hate to just like let George Pickens go for a 26 first and third, which I think most people would say is light. Fast forward to 2026 when this is the 103, it's going to look a lot better and you're going to feel a lot better about yourself.
Yeah, I kind of look at it too, Mike, though, is it's like I could wait for that scenario. If I see throughout the year he's getting some bad things happening to his team. Mike, this is also to that point of betting against him. I'm sitting on his 25 first too. So there's now like I now have a chance to wait my turn, wait and see if there's anything, any type of variance kicks my way where all of a sudden that first is a teetering playoff team. See if, the Who's wants to come bend the knee, get his picks back. If that scenario plays out, or Mike, if along the way, any one of the teams so right now I'm clearly in the mix of, I would say, probably what people don't want to be, which is 7th place in total, like overall volume players on my team, total draft picks, players, all that. So I think I'm pretty flexible at this point to see what happens. If there's a scenario where even if Blitz is a playoff team, Mike, and I'm like, all right, this team definitely has a lot of the core pieces to make the push into the playoffs. I got 4 firsts in the next 2 years, plus a bunch of seconds. I could unload the clip and get a bunch of players that mean something in this type of a format with all that type of liquidity. So it's not necessarily that I'm looking to replace Pickens 1-for-1 down the road. It's more of a piling up draft picks in volume.
Good. And you're in a nice pivot zone, right? You have a lot of youth on your team. Not a whole lot of like old producers where you have to get off, like guys that you're in danger of just absolutely tanking.
Like Ridley's the one on this team, and it's funny. I was trying to get Blitz to take Ridley for the 26 first, and that wasn't happening. So that's why we ended up going to the Pickens route.
Interesting. Well, keep that in mind because we also play in this league together. I might be interested in old Calvin.
Old Calvin? Well, come knocking on my door, buddy. He's right there. We can make a deal.
I could send you his teammate. Much worse.
Oh no.
Just kidding. I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't put that landmine on you. I don't hate you that much.
I mean, I know you don't love me that much either. Like you would, if you could find a way to get it done, you'd make it happen. But to the point, the team here, I think it's rounded out pretty nice. I'm starting to get close. There's a lot of young players on this team though that I'm not ready to make certain jumps on. Like I'm not ready to say the combination of Malik Neighbors, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Keon Coleman, Kyle Pitts, Jaden Reed, Xavier Legette. Like a lot of the core of this team, I could see it happening, but I'm not ready to say, yeah, it's time. I get you. I'll wait and see if I can make a push, but if I don't, I'm ready to probably really rock in the 2025 season.
You are. And at least you got Deshaun Watson, and I could possibly use a third quarterback. So
that'd be interesting too. Now the crazy part about that would be fun because it would take me. I'd have to see what you're willing to pay. I feel like Deshaun Watson is got to be the worst quarterback to sell or among them because everyone seems to think he's just terrible. But if we got that deal done, let's say just for instance, let's just remove the business talk for another time. If you took Watson off my team, what's great is I basically have no chance to be in 7th place. Start 2 quarterbacks, not having a single starter day one. Good luck. Good luck being worse than me week in and week out. There's only a handful of teams that can do that.
I've been there, man. That's how I got all them good picks, was just not having any quarterbacks.
Yep. I mean,
you look at a team that had Breece Hall and Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. I think I might have had Jamar Chase at one time on this team too. And it's like last place every year. Like, how is this possible? Well, look at the quarterbacks. There was not a single one.
For the record, that's one of the things where we just had, that 2 quarterback thing. That was my error, by the way, not Blitz's. I typed that in, Superflex. If you're in a 2 quarterback versus Superflex, for the record, that's one of the things that in best ball, it's first of all, it's suboptimal to have a skill player in the Superflex spot if you could have it versus a quarterback. We've kind of already gone over that. But in 2 quarterback, it's not suboptimal. It's just they don't go in that spot. So it's a much different deal as far as how you roster construct the quarterback position, I would say. But, all right, let's get into this deal, Mike. El Dorado, 12-team Superflex. We're going to lineup here. Lineup start 10. Interesting deal we're getting ready to read here. So Christian Kirk, Isaiah Pacheco in a couple of seconds. Getting back his own, it looks like, in 25. And then a Christian Marie something in 2026. Oh, that's coming from Christian Marine. Okay. And then we got Christian Marine is getting Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne, Cole Kmet, and Jacoby Brisket. So, Mike, Pacheco, Kirk in a couple of seconds, or Jacobs, Etienne, Kmet, and Brisket here?
So I'll break this down. Travis Etienne probably has the most dynasty value, and I don't know if it's necessarily right. So I don't know if it's hot takey to say that Pacheco and Etienne could easily cancel out, to be completely honest, production-wise. Running back for running back, so we don't have to
production-wise, I think there's a case.
Talk.
Yeah, I think production-wise there's a case to be made. I would say I agree with you, though. that market overall, the sentiment is Etienne over Pacheco. Now, the difference in cost of that's a totally different combo.
I am so far out on Josh Jacobs that I will gladly take Christian Kirk for Josh Jacobs. Is that hot to say?
That is. I mean, I get you, and I understand where you're coming from. By the way, I saw the video you just put out. I think there's definitely strong cases, which you made a lot of them, for Jacob to be out on Jacobs relative to what seems to be his cost, not really appropriately valuing his contract, his situation, them drafting a running back behind him, all these things. But at the same time, in a lineup start 10, yeah, I think it probably is a little hot takey to say Kirk for Jacobs, but listen, I like the conviction.
So, all right. Well, we could even say maybe they're even or close to even for some people.
Sure.
I don't know. If you favor Jacobs, okay, whatever. But the rest of it, 2 seconds for Brisket and Cole Kmet.
I think
I'll take any second. I'll take any second in this league because I assume I don't see a tight end premium in here. I'll pull the warp on it, Adam. But
yeah,
I would imagine the tight ends probably don't matter. So a second for Cole Kmet, who cares?
There you go.
And then a second. There you go.
Now,
and the tight ends don't matter.
They're definitely. I will say this has to have a light premium just because of the upper quadrant.
Just a little.
But to your point, right? If I think about the ranges of outcomes for Cole Kmet, and I've kind of been on the Cole Kmet. Now this is in tight ends, more of a tight end premium landscape than this one. I think Cole Kmet sometimes can be a little bit of a value because I still think he could have, weekly pop weeks type thing because there's so many other options in this offense where defenses lose track of him. But basically, even while I'll argue for him at a cost difference, if I take that out, like what are the odds that he's going to finish in that meaningful warp percentage there, Mike, where he's tight end 6 or higher, where it's 1 or up?
0.
Now, the reason I want to mention that, if you look at the warp here, I think you're probably right. Maybe 1%. Like it's got to be so slim, slim. 0, 1,
0, 0, 1.
I think on the high end range of outcomes, he's probably towards that tight end 12 range, tight end 9 to 12 type thing, where maybe it's not quite as good, but it's the point is look if you look at the receiver and then look at the receiver and the running back here, right? To keep one warp, the top 25 running backs are going to give me that. The top 36 receivers, speaking of Christian Kirk, are going to give me that tight end premium of Cole Kmet's probably absolutely rosiest range of outcomes. And I think that's kind of the whole idea why looking at warp and looking at the total of different positions. This is what's interesting now when you take this off the screen. To me, let's say that Jacobs is ahead of Kirk and there's, I don't know, a plus of a third or something like that. Whatever, right? Fine. Mm-hmm. So if we say Pacheco and Etienne, kind of a wash, but lean Etienne for market. Jacobs and Kirk, we're going to lean the Jacobs side. So we're leaning there already, the first two. A second for Kmet is an easy second, period, for me. Not a discussion. Now, the Jacoby Brissett thing, I mean, especially if it's another second involved, I mean, you've completely lost me there. Now, like the Cole Kmet thing, I think is for a second there, you could maybe tell me in a world where you believe that's worth it. Not the way I'd probably, but the second included here, and we're going to Brissett, we've gone to a place of no return for me. I'm out on this trade. Like if you told me that we remove Brissett in one of those seconds, I kind of could make the case both ways here. But I think a second for Brissett is just way off the table.
I think Cole Kmet is probably the most overvalued piece in this deal, and this includes Travis and Josh Jacobs, which I don't like either. But
that's saying something.
But here's the thing, Adam. Like you made the rosiest scenario for Cole Kmet, and last year I think we saw it as the number 2 option. We saw a nice little breakout for Cole Kmet. He finished as a top 10 tight end, whether it's points per game or warp or total season finish. But he did it on the back of a damn near 20% target share with an offense that only had DJ Moore. Now he gets a rookie quarterback that he has no rapport with. He gets target hog Keenan Allen. And they go out and they spend top 10 draft capital on a wide receiver. And if you think they're not going to feature him, you're out of your fucking mind. Right? Like
sure.
He all of a sudden went from the number 2 option to now the number 4 option.
Right.
And we don't really know. We saw how the Eagles used DeAndre Swift, and it's not the Eagles haven't, especially with Jalen Hurts, haven't been historically high in targeting running backs out of the backfield. But the one thing DeAndre Swift did do before he came to Philadelphia, even in his injury-plagued seasons, was command a lot of targets out of the backfield. So maybe there's a scenario now Cole Kmet is the 5th option on a Bears offense led by a rookie and a new offensive coordinator that has no, ties to what Cole Kmet can or cannot do. That's probably the scariest fucking thing out there. Where, like, we just really want to kind of slot him in as he might be a back-end tight end 1, high-end tight end 2 type. What if he's tight end 24, Adam? Like, Jesus Christ. Like, if he's that bad because he's just not getting targets and he just has a couple weeks here or there because people forget about him, that's fucking crazy to say. Like, we want to put him in this Jake Ferguson category, even though Jake Ferguson is the clear number 2 on that Dallas Cowboys high-powered offense. Where the Bears, as of right now, to assume they're going to be the Dallas Cowboys of 2023 and 2024 with a rookie quarterback is asinine to say. And now you're talking about a tight end who's pushed even farther down the pecking order after this offseason. So that's kind of why I say, like, Cole Kmet might be the most overrated, shittiest piece in this deal. Right?
I mean,
like, in reality, him and Jacoby Brissett, at least spot starts for Jacoby Brissett in the lineup start 10 might come in more handy than what Cole Kmet's going to do for you, which is nuts to say, but it's probably the truth. Sorry, not sorry.
I think that when you look at Cole Kmet, the scenario for last year and 2 years ago, kind of, while I agree, I think the floor is not secure because of how the targets could be distributed. You look at last year, he had more of the target volume came his way. 2 years ago, he was like, I think 49, 50 catches. Targets were low. I think the biggest thing for Cole Kmet, and that's why he's no longer, for me, in that tier where you're talking about with Ferguson. Now, at a certain point, which is much further than tight end 10, 12, I think he's a little bit of a value if you're saying – because I think there's probably tremendous touchdown upside for him given the fact that defenses can't account for 4 options in the red zone. But to your point, I think the targets likely are going to come down from last year at 90. I think they're – even if they're somewhat in the range, like you can totally see the picture. Targets are down, receptions are down, and receiving yards are down. And then that ultimately leads him in the category of the majority of tight ends, which is what? How many fucking touchdowns are you going to get me? You're touchdown dependent, right? I think that's the thing with Cole Kmet this year. Jacoby Brissett, I mean, in this format, even if he gives you spot starts early, I don't even know if you care. But, yeah, to your point, these are both assets I don't want to pay seconds for.
You know what's fucking nuts? Last year he was the number 2 tight end in the league in touchdowns.
So,
like,
7?
You think that's going 6? You think that's going any fucking higher?
Well, that would be – he's the number 2 tight end in the league with 6 touchdowns? Wow.
Yeah.
That was number 2. That just shows you that there's got to be some – I would think that's historically low, where the number 2 tight end in the NFL had 6 TDs. That's crazy to think.
This has kind of been my point, too, about, like, TJ Hawkinson and why I want to get off him, because you look at last year and you're like, oh, man, he was the number 1 tight end, yada, yada, yada. It's like, it was a bad fucking year for tight ends, man. We talked about how bad it was for quarterbacks. Historically, it was a bad year for tight ends, which is why I may be completely wrong on this, and there's a lot of people who do underdog that are very much smarter than I am, but anytime I see somebody taking a tight end on underdog in, like, the top 5 rounds, I don't give a fuck who it is. I'm like, man, that was a wasted pick. Good job. Good job. The warp on him is fucking terrible, and the trend of tight ends over the last couple of years has been very bad. And Travis Kelce is starting to age out.
Yeah, I mean, well,
you're assuming there's going to be a unicorn to replace him. And
the only way that bet pays off is if your conviction, probably in a wrong process, is just outweighed by somebody going bananas, which... Yeah. I mean, anything's possible with variance, but I'm with you on that for sure with the underdog process. I think this one, though, overall as a whole, Jesus cleaned up, I think, and kind of disguised nicely, swapping Etienne for Pacheco, same tier for me, swapping Jacobs and Kirk for a second, let's call it, and even then, if we were to do that, a second for Brissett and Kmet, I'll still take that. So, well done there.
Yep.
You know, well done.
Snuck it in.
El Dorado. All right. Schumer. Let's go. Acquiring Noah Fant. Mike, you want to get me excited? I don't know if it's going to be a deal that I'm happy about for him at the end of the day, but I see Noah Fant here. So it's Noah Fant, T. Higgins are being acquired for Alvin Kamara, the 208, the 211 in this class. Interesting. So it's 12-team Superflex tiered PPR lineup start 11. Someone say rookies. Now we got 2 in here, but we don't know the name of them yet.
I know a lot of people are out on T. Higgins. It was a bad year last year. I don't know. I can't quit him ever. So when you talk about most valuable piece in the deal, it's going to be T. Higgins by a long shot.
I don't think that's – even if you don't like T. Higgins, that's not hot takey.
And I'm a big fan of Alvin Kamara still having value, but also I do see that his efficiency numbers have just absolutely taken a dump.
They went dumpster diving this year. Yeah.
They were pretty bad, and I don't think as a whole this New Orleans offense is going to be like even better. So it's really just catch volume, and then like what can he do with it? Which, if you look at the efficiency, sometimes they very much. I like Kamara because he's a value, and everybody hates him. And, that's why I like him. But if you're talking about like getting my boy T. Higgins for Kamara in 2 seconds, sign me up. Line up, start 11 tiered PPR like this, I'm in. And then you just got a free Noah Fant. If you're going to give me a tight end, which doesn't matter at all, as a toss-in, please just give me Noah Fant. Please let me take the chance on that. Like, it feels like Noah Fant's going to be one of those guys where either he hits, and I'm like, you and I are both going to do this. I told you so dance.
This is the year. This is the year. We know.
It either feels like we're going to do that told you so dance, or Noah Fant's going to die out. He's going to die on both of our rosters.
Right.
Forever.
The people that left Noah Fant for dead were just a little ahead of the curve, because that's what he will be. If he goes into this, I'll say this: if he goes into this offense where there's more volume, whatever, and he's truly like not worth lineup consideration for the majority of the season, it's over. I mean, it's fucking done for him. To your point, the only, like, generically when I look at these picks and knowing what the 2024 class is, the only hesitation I would have, I'm with you for the record, by the way, just in theory. The only hesitation I would have is if you told me somehow, some way we look back at this class and there's this particular draft and you're like, holy fuck, why the hell did you walk away with Marshawn Lloyd and I don't know, Trey Benson Jalen Wright, whatever, right? If all of a sudden you had 3 legitimate running backs you felt decent about,
Ricky Pearsall and Jalen Wright, something.
That's the weirdest part about this. I know that when I see a 208 and a 211, generically you're like, bro, why do you hate T. Higgins? And that's still how I feel for probably the majority of the names you put here. But this class is deep enough to where I've been in enough drafts to see weird shit happen. Someone takes Troy Franklin too early. Someone takes Roman Wilson too early. And all of a sudden it's like, this is a 206 and a 209. And I got, some really valuable pieces. That's the only hesitation I have with it. I'm with you in theory, though. Consolidation, these 3 pieces for T. Higgins, by and large, I'm in. And then if Noah Fant's just the upside play, or just that's going to be the tight end I ride with until I find out he's dead, cool.
I like that point, too. And just for all the YouTube comment haters out there, too, Adam, they act like you and I don't do any leagues, or we don't have this thing called ADP. Like when we say
What's
sometimes
leagues?
we have seen Trey Benson available at the 208s. I know the last trade show somebody's like, no way Jonathon Brooks is ever there. And I'm like, I was like 207, bro. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
In Fade the Fetal, which, like, there's a bunch of people that pay a bunch of attention in that league. I mean, they're always watching Dynasty content. And I watched Nick trade up into the 207 or 208, whatever it was, to get frickin' Jonathon Brooks because he fell. And I'm just saying, I get it. Most times, or more often than not, Brooks is gone and Trey Benson's gone. I'm not saying that it's likely, but I've seen enough drafts where weird things happen where one of these guys is kind of in this mix. So then even if you tell me somehow, some way that 208 was one of those 2 running backs, but now we're having a totally different case in this entire trade. It's kind of more the point,
And I'm 100% with you. I'm not saying it's likely. It was far more likely in the early drafts, like right after the NFL draft.
Correct.
Like that happened all the time, where we started having these conversations like, is Jonathon Brooks eventually going to move into the first round? Like, and yes, the train did pick up and now ADP reflects it, but
sure.
Adam, still, like the one-off rookie drafts, these stragglers, you still see wild shit happen. Like people get a hard-on for Ricky Pearsall, and he goes in the first round, and you're like, oh, that's a new one. Or Brian Thomas Jr. sitting there at like the 203, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? What's happening here? But this class of all classes is the one to do it because there's such a big tier, like once you get to 108, 109, whatever, where, Jesus, make a case for whoever the fuck you want down to like 208. It's the same dudes. And there's going to be guys who love different guys. There's going to be guys who are in on quarterbacks, so I'm with you. That is a good point to just kind of acknowledge. If you happen to just stumble into a holy shit at the 208, this trade could look far different. But I'm okay, like, hedging your bets. Obviously, this was made before the rookie draft.
Right,
so.
And that's the case. Like, at this point, I'm kind of saying, even though I know that there is probably an outside scenario, I don't know, 10% or less chance that something like that happens, I'm kind of getting off of whatever chance I have right now to just say, lock me in, give me T, and I'm okay with it.
When he says T PPR too, it must mean like the running back gets a half point, the wide receiver gets a full point. Because just looking at the warp graph for it, the wide receivers are still on top by quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Wow. Well, can I tell you, I'll make a massive case. Can I tell you how much more now seeing warp here, by the way?
And
can I tell you how much more I prefer T.
backs.
Higgins now?
Yeah.
A guy like T. Higgins, if you tell me in his worst case scenario he's more like wide receiver 18 to 24, just hear me out on this, okay? Even if you hate T. Higgins or you say he's not that great.
Yes.
Look at the difference in warp. So wide receiver 24, 27 range, right? If we say that's like more the low end case for T. Higgins, look at where that is relative to wide receiver 12. Kind of meaningless.
Like running back 12, right?
No, I'm saying I'm saying T. Higgins. My point is that T. Higgins relative to wide receiver 12 even. Look at how that line really isn't giving you that much.
Flat tier.
Yeah, it's basically T. Higgins is a big value in this league because relative to a top 12, unless you're an elite receiver in this format, you're really overvalued if you're paying for wide receiver 12 versus wide receiver 27. So now to your point with running backs included in this, where we're looking at the Bensons and the stuff from the conversation we had at the trade. Case closed on T. Higgins for me when I look at the warp on this.
So what I was going to say is if you look at it and you were to draw a straight line from 24 over to RB12.
Oh, there you go.
Wide receiver 24 is
You're still ahead probably, right? Like at wide receiver.
Where if you told me Jonathan Brooks or Trey Benson finished as a top 12 running back on the season, I'm not going to be shocked, but I'd be like, God, that was a good season for them.
You'd be happy as hell, I think, though, still, right?
You'd be fucking stoked. And T. Higgins finished as wide receiver 24. You'd be like, that's kind of what T does with Joe Burrow. You're still winning out with the wide receiver 24, so just think about that part too.
Well, with the tiered PPR format, right, a lot of times that is half point for the running back, right, and then a full point for the receiver. And if you have any type of other bonuses in there where, that receiver line is stupid, man. Think about this. Wide receiver 39 in this format, or 38, whatever that is, gives you a one in warp. Yep. T. Higgins is massively valuable if I can acquire him for Kamara and 2 late seconds. I'm glad we pulled the warp and kind of closed any doubts there.
Close the book.
Schumer's back, doubling up. Same league. So we got the warp. We already saw it. Now this time, wow. Speaking of name brand, off brand, a little different.
So you must have got this one done first, right? Because the 208's on this side, the 211's on this side. Correct.
This was a 4D move where we're out of sequence here. Okay, so he's getting Jalen Hurts. Oh, he's sending away Jalen Hurts and Njoku in a 4th and 25. 4, Barkley, Chubb, and Dak in these 2 seconds. Now grade this trade just on its merits, and then we'll do the whole 4D combo here.
First off, how's Schumer going to be an Eagles fan and trade away Jalen Hurts?
I think the first question is more of the question. How is Schumer going to be an Eagles fan? Yeah, I don't know about that. That's fair.
If I told you Jalen Hurts, I know the quarterback line wasn't like super good, but the top 6 one is like right there with the elite of the elite, like right there historically. And you can just slide in Jalen Hurts as close to that 3 warp, if not 3 warp, almost every single year.
Jalen Hurts is going to be, because what is this? That's 4, 5, 6. He's going to be a 2 warp at worst, 2 to 2.5 warp, and then possibly 3 if he hits, right?
Yep, for sure. Do you want to trade that? I like Dak. I like buying Dak. I really do because he's cheap. But Dak and, Dak and Barkley for Jalen Hurts? Yeah. Fucking Christ, give me Jalen Hurts, man.
Well, now here, this is where I would say this. I think Dak Prescott probably has a similar likely scenario to give you a roughly 2 warp. I definitely agree, though. Hurts could end up being the single hammer in this, where Dak, I think, could be, Dak at the end of the year finished as quarterback 1 in the majority of the format's final 11 weeks. But I'm with you. I'm betting on Hurts over Dak year in and year out for sure. I think, Mike, if you told me that Barkley in these 2 seconds, I don't love getting the 2 seconds back as the second piece. I'm kind of viewing Chubb as just tossed in. If you told me that those 2 seconds, though, Mike, if you told me it was T. Higgins, Saquon Barkley, and Dak Prescott, which is kind of what we got to, I could make more of a case. So I think this is where this trade, I don't necessarily love this trade. I'd rather have the Hurts side. And if I look at the total of the 2 trades, I want Schumer's side as a whole in the 2 deals.
He does have CeeDee Lamb. I just don't think I'm chasing stack that hard in order to give up Jalen.
That's one of the stacks I would do it for. I still think that in this deal, I probably let Hurts go a little bit light, it feels. But I'm just going to say this. the combination, knowing now, Mike, just for example, all right, let's just do this in totality. Let's just kind of think this through, right? So last trade was essentially you're getting, forget Fant as a part of this, T. Higgins in the seconds for Kamara. So now if I look at this trade, right, and I throw in Jalen Hurts, Alvin Kamara, and David Njoku, right? Those three pieces, I'm getting back Dak Prescott, Saquon Barkley, T. Higgins, Nick Chubb, and Noah Fant, and I have the Dak Prescott stack. I'm doing it. This trade, though, as a whole, like I don't know that I end up getting to find out because I don't know that I do this trade. That's the problem for me. In sequencing, I don't know if I ever find out, but I'm willing to do the entire package trade that you end up with because one of the big reasons I'll say that I will in a tiebreaker, it's start 11 lineup is just enough for me to be like, all right, I get to start Barkley and T every single week. Fair. That's where I kind of make the tiebreaker at.
I don't think it's egregious. And I don't know if it's my Eagle fandom or my love for rushing quarterbacks comes into play, but giving up Jalen Hurts in today's market for just this, like,
I get you. I think you give up the market play. I think right now the interesting part is Jalen Hurts' market is very iffy too. But I know that I'm giving up the market. Dak Prescott does not have the market at all. So I'm kind of like sinking into Dak Prescott, ride or die with him now, which is interesting because if Eagles fan, that's tough, right? Ride or die with Dak. You're muted, I think.
Me being so in on Dak is very, very weird for me. And being so in on CeeDee Lamb is very weird for me. But, hey, fantasy championships, man, you put all that shit to the side.
I mean, I don't see a scenario where that offense can do anything else. They just it's all they got.
Old Zeke again, just 8 million carries for.
I mean, don't get me wrong. He's going to get his nice little heavy workload, but for no fantasy relevance, and we're going to have to chuck that thing. All right. Oh, wow, Mike. New England Gridiron, 12-team Superflex PPR. My face is just like this emoji down here. We're already doing this, and it's Gerard Mayo.
This guy?
Do you guys know this guy? He's back. All right, Mike, 12-team Superflex PPR, full tight end premium lineup, starting 12.
Ooh, baby. That's going to factor in.
Can I say that this trade was lofty?
It was lofty. New England.
Marvin Harrison Jr. or Garrett Wilson in a 26 first, Mike. I'm going to the lab here, first and foremost. This is I need more context to really have before I make final judgment. I'm not saying that it's going to drastically move it, but I need to have a little bigger or better picture for me to say anything on this with Gerard Mayo's team. Where are you at, by the way? Go ahead. Just go ahead and
just fucking Garrett Wilson in the first. And you know me, it's I've been the most anti Garrett Wilson, pump the fucking brakes Garrett Wilson guy out there, but start 12. You give me Garrett Wilson and the first. I love Marv. Marv is awesome, but Jesus. There's a reason I go with the tear down approach, man. If you can tear down from Marv to this, sign me the fuck up. And then look at the lab.
Well, yeah, I wish I wouldn't have said that I want to do that. He's got Keenan Allen on this team. Can I tell you that?
No way.
Mike, here's what I'll say about this. Let's just use range of outcomes, okay? Let's say Marvin Harrison Jr. is, because of the attachment to Kyler Murray, obviously they needed an alpha since losing Nuke. They need a
number one. Bad.
Since losing Nuke, it's not been the same, right? Obviously, Kyler Murray's been hurt in and out of the lineup during that time, but I love Trey McBride for the record, but you can't continue to just funnel the ball only his way for a whole season to 85. It just doesn't work. It's not how.
Maybe he's the new Travis Kelce.
I mean, I'm not saying he's not going to still be great, but offenses are going to be listen, there's nothing else here. You want to beat us with Hollywood and all that? Fine.
Defenses are just going to double team the tight end. That's it.
He does get the stack. Getting Kyler and Marv. But I'm just saying range of outcomes. Let's say because he's attached to Kyler Murray, the offense is good, and let's say that he actually has more of a historic type rookie season where he's a top 12 wide receiver in his first year. Let's just give that as a range of outcomes. I think there's a scenario.
Yeah.
Here's the thing I struggle with here. Garrett Wilson in year 3. If Rodgers, I get it. He's older. There's a lot of what ifs, but
yep.
How certain are we that Garrett Wilson doesn't give you, even if Marvin Harrison smashes, 95% of the production or exactly the same production?
If you were to say Garrett Wilson's a top 15 wide receiver on this year, are you shocked?
I don't think anybody would be. I mean, we've been drafting him in redraft in Dynasty very high.
I guess he asked you, are you disappointed?
What would you?
Or is that what
a
you
better
expect?
question is, what would be a disappointing finish for Garrett Wilson? I think is a better question.
Mid to late wide receiver 2.
I was going to say wide receiver 20, 18, 20.
Yeah, outside the top 20, 24.
If he's outside of top 20, I think you probably. I think the appearance and what we kind of visualize and view Garrett Wilson at. I have said though, Mike, Garrett Wilson I think is now on the clock officially as far as production goes. Right, this year.
Dynasty value teeters on what he does in year 3. Right, you get
Right.
another wide receiver 30-ish finish.
We're gonna have
with
a much different
fully
outlook.
healthy. We're starting to cash the fuck out. Like, we're good.
So that being said, like I understand wanting to say because of market, because of situation, I would rather go from Garrett Wilson to Marv. I don't think I can pay the first, dude.
I
Can't.
mean, I know it was with Zach Wilson and fucking Tim Boyle and I forget the other trash can that Simeon. Was it Simeon that they brought out for a game? Or maybe not. I don't give a fuck. Whoever
Sounds
it was.
right. It was bad. They had
I
a
know it was
couple
with
years ago.
those
They had
guys.
Joe Flacco before he went to the Browns.
I know it was with their guys, but when you talk about targets and target shares, not many people rival CeeDee Lamb in that. And
No.
Garrett Wilson had a 30% fucking target share. Now, most of them were inefficient on a bad fucking offense that was behind and a team that was trailing. So even if that came down a little bit, I honestly, like, what the fuck else did they add to this team where you're like, oh, man, that target share is going to take a massive dip? Well, I mean, who? Malachi Corley? Is that the guy? Is that the guy that's going to take away fucking Garrett Wilson's targets? Like, you could be looking at 2 wide receivers, and if Garrett Wilson beat Marvin Harrison Jr. in target share for this year, I would not be shocked. And I think actually that should be the favorite because Garrett Wilson doesn't have Trey McBride to contend with at all. He's got Tyler Conklin.
But he does.
No
but
offense.
he does have Breece Hall, who was a savage down the stretch. It'll be interesting to see if he keeps getting those targets. Not even second part of the year. I'd say like latter third of the year. Breece Hall's target volume was on a freaking different planet. It was insane.
Do you know Do you know when Garrett Wilson had his most targets?
Probably at that same stretch
Because
because they're playing a lot of come from behind football.
14, 15, 10, 10.
Garrett Wilson, though, here's the one thing I do know about Garrett Wilson. Not saying Marv will not give you this. I think Marv is going to prove to be a target hog in a big way early in his career. Garrett Wilson, you say what you want about his production, but this guy has earned targets at a alpha clip from day one in the NFL.
Yeah.
Outrageous target volume earning.
147, 168. Jesus.
I think this is a pretty simple, like, I want the lofty side here because of the first, and I think that this is a very clear, I want Marv and Kyler stack, and I'm going to overpay to get it.
Listen, I'm not saying Marv's bad or anything like that, so don't attack me in the comments. And I would prefer Marvin Harrison over Garrett Wilson. I will draft Marvin Harrison.
And we have them
before
in
I draft
separate
Garrett
tiers,
Wilson.
correct?
Yes, and I
Right.
have them in separate tiers, but I'm not paying my first when my team's already kind of shaky to go get that just to complete the stack. Because in all reality, like, the harsh truth is, you look at his team on the lab and you go, why? Like, what part made you feel like you had the draft capital or the liquidity to go ahead and push this in? I get it. You got Kyler and you got Bryce Young. You have no third quarterback in a lineup league. I mean, unless you think Joe Milton's going to start games for the Patriots.
I think I know why, actually. You know why? Because Fanatics and the whole situation Marv has going on, you can't get his jersey. I got to get a share. I got to get a Marv share.
Can't get the jersey. I got to get the share.
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, Mike. This is a trade that is, it's against process, and you're going to get your guy / the stack. Like I almost can promise you, there's no way people don't believe that that's. I'm not saying that actually, when we look back a year from now, if Garrett Wilson doesn't produce, that couldn't be a winning trade. But I'm not willing to do that. To your point.
It is a team that is in limbo and kind of looking for the future and to gather assets because it's not a contender this year. Your RB2 is Chuba Hubbard. Like, not that I think Chuba's bad or anything, but they just drafted Jonathan Brooks. You know his time is short in the league.
Sure.
Your third running back right now is Rasheen Ali, Miles Sanders.
I like the kid. I like
string.
Ali. You know.
I mean, he's deep at wide receiver, but I don't understand it from a team building aspect. Like when I look at this, I don't feel like I'm in a position to like. I'm gonna throw my 26 first right into the fucking ring.
I also feel like Gerard may have. I think he's got when he knows there's a trade that we're not going to like, he likes to lob it into us. I feel like he's starting to. Yeah. He knows what he's doing here.
Is he into like BDSM or whatever? He likes the punishment.
Yeah, I like that. You kind of, he knows that, all right, these guys are going to hate this trade. Let's get that on there, Your trade's an F, you're getting roasted type deal, right?
That's fair. That's an F.
I mean, it's just a trade that I will acknowledge could work out. The stack could be great. I just don't want to make it.
I give it an F+. It's not trading a first for Keenan Allen. So
that a boy. All right. How about Mr. Wonderful here and Warren G? So Kyler Murray, A.J. Brown, Kenneth Walker, a 25 first from Warren G. Receiving back Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman. So really two relevant pieces in Baltimore's offense and one that's completely not, except for there's conjecture again. Bateman's going to have a year this year. Chris Olave. So when I look at this, first and foremost, however the difference you value from Lamar to Kyler, we can acknowledge that. I would say there's definitely a sizable difference from A.J. Brown to Chris Olave for me. I have them in separate tiers, but dynasty value for some probably doesn't have it that far off.
It's just like the trade show of all my guys that I said sell.
Now, the interesting part here, okay, if we say that a first is enough for Andrews, I think this tight end premium in a best ball league already makes it like in the conversation. It could be light, but in the range. But now Kenneth Walker versus Bateman is ridiculously heavy on one side when I'm just kind of looking up. The reason I wanted to get all that out because that to me, just quick math in my head when I'm kind of like pairing fractions, that part stands out to me. Like there's initially, it's like a Where's Waldo moment, Mike. Like something here is pretty easy. You may not be able to find it, but once you do, it's like, oh yeah, that doesn't belong. I found Waldo, right? And that's Bateman here. So I'm just curious for you now, the consolidation basically to get Lamar and then stack it with Andrews. Is it worth doing this for Warren G?
Maybe. The quarterback line, the warp line in this is fucking stupid good. And then wide receivers and running backs literally lay on top of each other. And then even though you see 0.75 tight end premium and start 2 tight ends, yes, the elite of the elite tight ends are good, and then it's a tier of shitters below 1. And that's kind of what we all come to believe in. I would say you probably pencil Mark Andrews in as a 1.0 warp or better, like that top 4 kind of guy, you think? So, I think that part is like worth it. For me, it's tough because Kyler and Lamar are like dead even for me.
Yeah, I think that I'm with you.
AJ Brown and Olave, like I have AJ Brown above Olave, but I don't think it's egregious. So even if you wanted to cancel him out just on market value and where people are at with the two guys, even though I think you should sell Olave, I think from a warp standpoint, I'd much rather have AJ Brown just for that elite like difference maker because we saw it last year. So if I said like, hey, that's my plus from going down, quote unquote, from Kyler to Lamar, even though I think they're dead even.
Right. Let's even say though, with all that being said, Mike, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's my
Walker
problem.
Or Mark Andrews in
Kenneth Walker and a first for Mark Andrews.
Kenneth Walker and Mark Andrews is a push. So you got a lot of pushes or very slight wins in one way or the other, and then you have the egregious. I don't even give a fuck if that's the 112 for Rashad Bateman. It's easy 112. And Mr. Wonderful continues to sneak this kind of shit in and get these deals through, and I don't know how it. I think it bleeds over because when he sends me offers, they're like dog shit like this. And I'm like, okay, first off.
Well, listen. So Mike, I used to. I don't do it anymore. For 12 years, I worked in sales in a call center, right? And it was like, now I wasn't selling dog shit per se. I was selling labels. The adhesive may have been dog shit. There may have been pieces of the quality of the material that was dog shit. But Mike, you just make volume. I just keep making calls. Eventually, I'm going to get some sucker out there to buy, a roll. And I think that's what's happening. Mr. Wonderful finds a sucker to buy a roll of the TP. The thing is, at this point, if you tell me the first and Bateman come out of the deal, you got probably a fine trade.
You got a fine trade. Yes, you're making your bets on the Kyler side.
Rewind now. Rewind what I just said. If you take Bateman and first out of the deal, that's not just a little, it's not some happy-go-lucky thing. Like, it's a wildly wild different thing there, my friends. Like, that's...
Yeah.
Bateman is honestly, to this point, Mike, I'm going to be nice. Bateman, to me, you could try to convince me he's a best ball receiver. You could try. Like, he's at the point where he may not be a best ball receiver after this year. And all that means is that you have a pulse.
I mean, I'm into auction startups right now, slow proxy auctions at them, where, not going to lie to you, I probably completely, like, fucked both of them. So I'm down to, like, my last few dollars, and I'm just like, thankfully they're not one of those leagues where you have to fill out, like, all your 37 roster spots. You know what I mean? Like, I can leave with 7 guys and no one gives a fuck. Like, we're good.
Right.
I'm at the point in both of them because I fucked him up so bad. Like, Bateman's the kind of guy where I'll just throw the last $15 I have at him. Just, like, if he's nothing, who gives a fuck? All right, this team's already dog shit. But maybe, just maybe, Derek Brown was just a year early. Just maybe Matt Harmon is right. Just maybe. That's it. But that's the kind of bullshit that I tell myself. In reality, Rashad Bateman's probably fucking Elijah Moore and not going to do anything ever.
Now here is the one thing, too, about this, right? I think about how something like this gets done, and I think about the scenarios. The Warren G team, like this team, this league, this league pretty clearly is a have and have-nots. Like, I see 4 teams clearly in the mix with values.
Yeah.
I see a couple teams that don't know what they're doing, really, and then I see teams that are just atrocious. And like Warren G, I think this is one of those things, Mike, where you can get, if you tunnel vision this idea where it's like, this is a late first, no one in this league's really valuing it accordingly, so fine, I'm going to make this deal because I get the Lamar and Andrew stack, and I value Lamar that much differently than Kyler. I think he has a chance to be the elite difference maker in this. The problem is Mr. Wonderful is now going to find a way at some point to take that Warren G 2020 pick and, make magic with it. And in Best Ball Start 11, you can't forego meaningful assets like that. It's going to come back to bite you in the ass. And I think that it's pretty simple to me. Like, the trade could be made reasonable with removing that first and Bateman very easily. And it's a totally different conversation. I'd probably even want the Warren G side. So if you're willing to forego a first because you think your part of this deal is that much better, fine. It's just I'm not doing that.
I don't know how he keeps getting it done. And the other thing, looking at it on the lab, Adam, how the fuck does he have the 106 this year? He has 225 first, and he has 226 first. His team is stacked outside of tight end, which is like the South Harmon way.
Perfect, right? Yeah. My shit league,
Fuck
which was
them
like absolutely break a league open. Mike, I won with Noah Fant as my tight end one, and I think really the only body I had in the playoffs, and he was terrible for the record.
I mean, it's a best ball league. He has Adams and Cooper and Deontay just chilling on the bench.
I mean, for the record, you have to start 2 in this league, and he's got Mayer and Logan Thomas currently slated to be his starting tight end room. CJ Uzama, Josh Oliver, like he'll probably end up finding a way to make those tight ends more relevant. But point is, he just shed it out.
And AJ Brown as the starting wide receivers.
Right. You got Bijan and Gibbs, Chase, Amon-Ra, AJ Brown. You got Burrow and T. Higgins. So you got the whole Cincinnati thing. Maybe he can take this first down, go overpay, and find a way to get Marv, make the stack happen again, just like last deal.
Just get them all. Just get them all.
But in best ball, Mike, you got Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson on the bench. No, you're in great shape. This is easily Mr. Wonderful side for me here. I think this is. Can I tell you what this is, though, Mike? The reality, this is if you understand and have a handle on dynasty values and pretty strong like pulse on that, you kind of do the. I think the South Harmon way is. I like to do the dynasty flashcards, but you think about what in the market every asset's worth in rookie picks and in startup picks and all that. You just keep making counter offers. You get somebody that's willing to play ball, and you eventually just land on a deal where this is the math I'm looking for, and you just press accept. That's what happens. It's shitty. It's kind of it's a shit thing to do.
Look at this guy, Fizzle. On the
oh, whoa! We tried to kill off Fizzle's deal. Let's go to the $25 cookout. Let's go to the Mr. Voorhees was like, nah, we're out of here. The $25 cookout, Mike. Fizzle Dallas. Fizzle Fridays. 12-team Superflex PPR. It's a 0.75 tight end premium. Best ball start 11. $25 cookout here, okay? Wow. Big boy moves. Drake London. Roma Dunze. So you get Drake London, and then you get the stack of Caleb and Roma Dunze. You get Mr. Voorhees' future, which let me just tell you, I don't want Mr. Voorhees knowing I have his future. But you get those 25 first and 26 first. You send him Mahomes, which, I mean, that's the godfather of all of them. And you give him Waddle and Worthy, as well as 2 seconds, 25 and 26. I'm assuming these are, looks like Fizzles, and then the 26th third of his. So basically what you're looking at, Mike, is you swap seconds into first in 25 and 26. You go from Worthy to Adunze. You go from Waddle to London. So slight up tier, big up tier from Worthy to Adunze in my mind. Slight up tier from Waddle to London. But you go down from Mahomes to Caleb. Worth it or not in best ball, start 11?
London and Waddle, don't give a fuck.
Cancel, sure.
Sure. Adunze over Worthy pretty easily.
For sure.
Everything we've done has shown that, right? Hit rates.
Facts.
Yeah, easily. Caleb, definitely below Mahomes, right? And
well, I mean,
the
sure.
question remains how much below Mahomes.
Market
And
probably
I'll
tells
say-
you at least a first, right? If not more.
I would agree with you. At least a first is probably fair. A second first is not, no matter if I'm sending you 2 seconds and a third, because I already gaped you on the Adunze Worthy thing. Like, I already got you once. You can take the seconds and thirds to kind of, the 2 seconds and the third to kind of make up for the fact I'm getting a second first in this whole, Mahomes, Caleb Williams tear down. But Jesus Christ. I already body bagged you on the Adunze Worthy thing. Like, what are we doing here? Why? He wanted that stack so fucking bad, man. Where it was like, I can make the case in my head that Patrick Mahomes and the Xavier Worthy stack is worth it to give up this other first. Well done, Fizz. Like, this might be the first time Fizz has made the trade show, and he did not disappoint on the $25 cookout. Like, he nailed it. He ate all the red beans and rice. He ate the fucking cornbread. He ate the collard greens. He took the whole fucking thing home from the cookout, and Mr. Voorhees is left with nothing. Like, he might have got some sweet tea. That's it.
The interesting part, though, to me is, like, most of the movies I watched, Mr. Voorhees did a lot of killing, and this one is you killed him. I guess when I look at it, I will admit in Best Ball Start 11, like, if you are a very strong contending team, if you want to get off the first to go to the seconds, like, you can make the case that it's not that big of a deal. I just cannot do that twice when I think the biggest thing for me, really, Mike, is that I feel like the stack of Adunze and Caleb is, if that's somehow being, like, not appropriately valued because you're getting the Worthy and Mahomes stack. I know it's best ball, and let's call it what it is. In best ball, Worthy and Mahomes could have some wild weeks, absolutely insane spike to each other week. Dude, big picture, when Keenan Allen is no longer a Bear, there's a scenario where Rome is just him. Rome is just him in this offense.
Timothy Adunze.
People are all of a sudden that Pac-12, helmet scouting, wide receiver stuff that everyone wants to do, and you just put that to bed, and he's absolutely body bagging folks out there. So I can't do it. It's too much. Forget that little third in there. I will say too, though, at the same time in best ball, you could make a case that if you go back to the first and the seconds, they're not that big of a trade-off. Like, you basically stayed even with asset trading, right? You got 5 for 5, truthfully here, and you get Mahomes. So, like, I can certainly understand how you get talked into doing this. Can I tell you the biggest problem overall, though? This last year happens, right? Like, when you make a trade like this, Mahomes has to be every bit in production of that 2022 version where you're like, holy fuck. The league has no chance when he's playing that way. Like, there's no margin for error now for Mahomes to not give you that type of scenario. And the interesting part to me is that what if Caleb, Mike, had a historic type season at the quarterback position? Let's say it's not even quite C.J. Stroud or something in that range where, Like if Caleb Williams actually is a top 12 quarterback in Superflex this year, the whole thing's done. Like if he actually produces at a somewhat meaningful clip, Fizzle cleans this up big time.
Here's the other problem I have from a roster construction standpoint. It's best ball. It's best ball start 11. I guarantee you quarterbacks matter in this league. They do. Because it's not that deep where they get kind of move to the irrelevant territory. This guy only has 2 quarterbacks on his roster. I mean, technically he has Spencer Rattler, but Jesus fuck, had him. And now you just gave up all your draft capital that you need to go get like a real quarterback. And you're left like, can I fill with a Derek Carr for one of these seconds? That's a shitty fucking spot to be in. Like to find that third guy. It really is. Because I don't know how many times like those best ball teams I had, Adam, where it's like I got 2 studs and you don't really have that third, and you're like, I might be able to buy a shitter for a second, and that shitter plays like 2 games and then gets benched, and you're like, fuck, fuck. Now I'm back into square one. Now I got to send another second for another shitter and hope to God he plays out the rest of the season.
You know what I'm seeing too? Oh wow! As I'm looking at this, so it Fizzle, you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments on this, but this is looking to me like one of these more recent startups, somewhat.
Yeah.
And can I tell you one of the things there is that, especially in best ball, I've seen it. It's like, okay, let's say Mr. Voorhees gets away with that. His team is really good in this league, and you end up winning the title, right? So it's like, all right, worth it. I can see the scenario, but that's kind of threading the needle because for the most part in a league like this, in any league in general in best ball first year, no one's going to be outrageously deep in a normal startup, right? But if Fizzle now won is one of the first teams to control multiple firsts, and he kind of slow plays this thing, and he could mess around, still be in the playoffs, and kind of double dip here, right? Where it's like, all right, your team's still competitive. You really didn't lose a whole lot on the surface as far as production. But now if any one of these teams up here that's pushing their first in, and he kind of plays into that hand, you end up buying multiple pieces in production, and you have all the leverage when the entire league is playing at one spot, which is in a short window. You can, in a year or two, flip the hammer on this entire league by doing that. So I love the start of Fizzle doing this trade.
It does look like one that just came out because if I look at what the lab says is the best team versus what is the worst team in redraft total in there,
nothing.
I
crazy.
look at them and I go, the rosters aren't that different between the two.
And there's only one other team that's acquired a 25 first that isn't their own. So it's like, all right, just kind of. I've seen. Let me just tell you this: I've seen different covers. I've seen different hardback. So I've seen this story a million times, though. Okay, they all play out kind of the same. All right, and the short term it could work out, but I know in the long term, the bigger picture in Dynasty, which we're playing for, that cookout's going to be expensive, more than $25. Dynasty, Mike. I think this is a new patron. So 12-team Superflex PPR, half tight and premium lineup start 11. Dynasty. Okay. T-Law, Tank Dell, and the 104, which turns into Neighbors. Or Marvin Harrison Jr., Bo Nix, and a 25 first. Interesting. Where are you at here?
We got the names next to them.
Love this. So this was this was clearly, I think they had to edit that in, but I love having this context because, Mike, this is now I think this is a good discussion. Where are you at, though?
Marvin Neighbors. You want Marv?
Sure.
More than Neighbors.
Sure.
But I think they're real close. Still. I will say this, though. Nix and Trevor Lawrence is not that fucking close.
Well.
And this is coming from the guy who's got 1 billion Knicks shares.
I think, can I tell you, the reason I think that's the interesting part about those two is T-Law's market is, it's kind of unreal. And to be honest, like it's amazing for a guy that's like been so mid or bad in his rookie season that he's still in that third round range. But when I think about it from that lens, let's even say his production continues to be, I don't know, something like back end quarterback 1, which is kind of what we're projecting. Like the biggest problem with Bo Nix is, listen, certainly has the draft capital to check out. We've gone through the data. There's a more than reasonable chance where Bo Nix is somewhat relevant, but like, I think here's the thing. If Bo Nix gave you production that Trevor Lawrence did, and we're kind of critiquing Trevor Lawrence as not good because of it, the Bo Nix owners and everybody would be ecstatic. Ecstatic for him to give you that production. So that part is massive. But then the other thing is, if you even assume, like, if you're willing to take that big down tier, like, I'm not truly a part of the camp for Tank Dell for a generic first. That being said, if that's what is going into the deal to make up the difference in T-Law to the 110, I now also have, what if Tank Dell actually is really good and attached to C.J. Stroud?
Yes.
That's worth the gamble given what I'm going from Nix to Lawrence for. I want the neighbor's side of this deal.
Easily.
Okay.
No question about it. I think you can make the case that Nix in the first gets you to T-Law.
Right. If you took Tank Dell out of the deal, I still could have a conversation, but I would say there it's like, okay, you get the liquid first. It's a big down tier from Nix, but you get Marvin Harrison Jr., you have a first to play with still. You're kind of hoping to just hold serve with Nix. I get it, right?
Perfect.
Now the Tank Dell screws you.
The Tank Dell fucking part fucks you. And listen, man, you and I have like shit on T-Law, and it's weird that we don't really know how to do it. I don't know what this league is as far as production. So a little sneak peek here. You guys are watching this on Saturday, hopefully. Maybe Sunday. But check out my solo video coming out on Monday, because I had Dynasty Barry run me the quarterback framework at him, but with 6-point passing touchdowns. Now this one obviously
he sent me the spreadsheet. I haven't got a chance to comb it over. I'm looking forward to hearing the video.
Massive fucking difference. This one isn't, though. We can see with the warp graph. I would tell you, if this is a 6-point passing touchdown league, that quarterback line would be a fuck ton higher.
Well, I would agree. And also, if it's not, in order for that to be 6-point passing touchdown, that means it has to be so many bonuses to running back and wide receiver to push it up. Yeah. And I will say, though, Mike, I play, and I really strongly prefer 6-point per passing touchdown. I play largely in it. I think 80% of my leagues are 5 or 6 point per passing touchdown. But yeah, the 4 point per passing touchdown with any type of bonuses to the skill players, it's like if you don't have a running quarterback, man, gosh, I just don't want it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we talk bad even. Yeah, let's just talk about 4-point passing touchdown. Trevor Lawrence was 17.3 points per game.
Yep.
C.J. Stroud, who now is the QB3 overall in Dynasty ADP and Keep Trade Cut ranks, is at like 18.6.
I was going to say he's not even at 20, so.
Right. That's the minor differences. And this is like everybody, for you, like I think maybe us as a community, we've gone a little bit too far on the T-Law hate. Like, I'm kind of coming back to your side early in the season, Adam, when I was trying to get you off of T-Law. And you're like, no, he's fine, and we're arguing about it. And then towards the end of the season, you're like, you know what, Mike, you're right. But now we're coming back together where I'm like, Adam, maybe we hate him a little bit too much because he wasn't that fucking bad.
Sure. I mean, the case is basically, when we were arguing there, it was almost like, what? I was like week 4 or 5. We had enough of a sample size, but it was, to me, I'm like, all right, just give the guy some time. We gave him time, and nothing really changed. There was some injuries and stuff, so it's like, all right, I get it.
In all reality, too, like his best games came in that like mid chunk of the season, like your money zones. So week 11, 12, 13, 14, like that shit to get you into the playoffs, like to elevate you. Trevor Lawrence was that dude. I mean, 32 points, 25, 25, 20. Those are elite fucking numbers he was putting up at that time. And then he had that, you remember he had that like ankle injury where we thought he was going to miss the rest of the fucking season when
came
it
back
got
and
that real
played,
bad.
right.
Like, yeah, you're like, oh, that thing's shattered or whatever. But he came back and played, and then he was just like, okay.
Yeah, I think here's the thing with T-Law. His market is shown to be very stable. His production, I think, right now isn't giving us the high-end upside we were probably hoping for. I still, when I watch him, Mike, it's very inconsistent. I've seen moments where I'm like, this guy just doesn't seem to be what we were promised.
Engaged. Yeah. And then you see some moments.
But I also have
like,
seen times where drives, moments, games where I'm like, damn, that was legit. I think the reality is he's a quarterback that kind of is truthfully more safe, and he's kind of in the range now of being valued more safe. He's a quarterback 12 to 15 in startups. So if you're valuing him more appropriately there, and you're saying, all right, listen, this is a back-end quarterback 1 type of a player, all right, that's, I think, realistically what he more likely is going to give you. If you're telling me I can get T-Law for Bo, I feel like Bo Nix right now, part of the biggest problem with him, while I want to argue for him, especially at the cost of 110 here, which is what it was, the problem I see is that I feel like I have an asset that I have to hold. I feel like nobody really is going to let me trade him for a while without seeing what Bo Nix is going to give you. But if you're telling me that I can trade Bo Nix in a first for Trevor Lawrence and Tank Dell, Mike, I mean, we just stop having the conversation. Go get yourself some Bo Nix, man. What are we doing, right?
I hypothetically, let me just throw this out there in favor of Trevor Lawrence. Just one little nugget to leave people with. Last year, it really felt like they wanted to get Calvin Ridley involved. Like
100%.
Really did.
He was forcing that thing there.
Like they really wanted to force it and make that trade like, oh yeah, we were a good thing. Here's the thing. When I watched the games, Adam, it really felt like they were misusing Calvin Ridley because they already had Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk on the field. And Calvin Ridley kind of became that de facto deep threat. And that ain't really what Calvin Ridley's game is. Like, he's going to break you off with really awesome routes. He's tough to cover. But, like, using him as that, like, Zay Jones, we're going to send you on fucking 9 routes and deep posts and that kind of shit, didn't really fit his game. What happens this year, though, if the combination of Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. is, like, what they wanted for that fucking role, right? Like, they have that guy to, like, yes, you are super efficient. Brian Thomas is a fucking walking Adonis on 9 routes. Like, that's the kind of guy. And Gabe Davis, we have seen that explosion in Buffalo, too. Even though I hate Gabe Davis. But, no, like, those guys are better suited for that kind of role, and Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram can now work that intermediate route. What if this is the year that Trevor Lawrence has the actual pieces that fit what he does best? The intermediate guys are covered, and now he has 2 deep threats that are true and, like, you know, big-time playmakers down the field, not Calvin Ridley.
I think the same sentiment goes to what you just said, also with, like, idea, stature, symbol, where, like, if you're Trevor Lawrence and you haven't had options and weapons, Calvin Ridley comes to town coming off of all the suspense. You know the pedigree's there. This is a guy that's talented, and we want to get involved to keep him happy. This is Gabe Davis and a rookie. Like that, I think there's a much more realistic scenario here where he doesn't feel like he has to force the ball to a guy that's, who knows he's very talented. Yeah. There's not that established, diva alpha type where you're going to see, like, oh, if you don't throw the ball out his way, he might start pouting. Plus, you got Christian Kirk in the slot still and Evan Ingram. I think you could see the writing is on the wall. You can totally see the scenario where he takes a step forward. But I think if you're being safe about it, you still have a safe, high-end quarterback 2, low-end quarterback 1, right? Like
1,000%.
That's where, yeah, I'm with you. So, with that being said, Bo Nix, I think so far on the trade show anyway, Bo Nix has been on the losing side so far. We'll see. I'd love to see a trade where Bo Nix has been, like, you squeezed a cheap one out for him. But
Let me go try. I mean, I might as well add to my overwhelming rostership of Bo Nix by seeing if I can get some cheap deals. Like, maybe I got a rookie draft where Bo Nix fell to, like, the 204, 205.
Yeah.
And now that a couple weeks of dust have settled, it'd be like, hey, you heard all the bad shit about him.
He's not the 110 anymore. He's a quarterback, all right? He's just a quarterback. I think that's the other thing. It'll be interesting to see, like, for example, production-wise and market-wise, what settles in with Marv and Neighbors, for example. Like, if Marv is one of those difference makers, and let's say Neighbors he shows you the upside, but the points per game aren't really there. What's really the difference in Lawrence and Nix in production probably comes down to that trade in production. So,
for sure,
will be interesting to see how it plays out. I thought a lot of very good deals. Mr. Wonderful, of course, has to make it not a very wonderful deal that he throws in there. Gerard Mayo's back. Same Gerard Mayo, better help. We want you to get some help, buddy. Schumer with a couple of deals. I thought it was a good show. I thought it was a good show overall. Where were you at on it?
I love it. I love it too. I love our little recap sessions here at the end. I don't think anybody watches like most of this all the way through. As soon as that last trade goes off, they probably click off. But I appreciate those of you who
Any
do.
of you that are, just know we have
what?
a special place.
You know what, Adam? I think what we do, not for this trade show, maybe not for the next one, but one in the near future. I got some stuff from the NFL draft like people didn't claim or give away. Maybe like right here on one of these trade shows, we just you put up the little graphic, the little link of like where to go at the end of the competition. We'll see who the fucking diehard.
We'll see how many people sign up. Who actually watched?
Yeah, who actually fucking watches, and you win something fucking cool. So
absolutely,
cool.
I love that.
I got a Culpepper jersey back there. I got a David Njoku signed helmet. Sure, you don't want me to give that one away though.
I was gonna say, listen, if nobody claims the Njoku jersey or helmet again, I won't be mad, and I know where I can find it, where I can come get it in Iowa. So
you got to come visit sometime.
I was gonna say I do. I was hoping at some point this summer, which the summer just happened for my wife, so I'm hoping I can actually get over there and check out the digs in Iowa.
There you go, man.
Let's do it. But
use all the frequent flyer Spirit miles you got built up.
Yeah, if Frontier starts flying to any of the tripod airports near Mike, I think we're in business.
I got you. Gotcha. But you can always just jump out. Use a parachute or whatever when you fly over.
Listen, I like to do crazy stuff, but I have my limits.
It's big open fields here. You'll be fine.
That's actually true. It's just cornfields.
Just corn, man.
Yeah, but anyway, if you want your trades featured on the trade show, you want us to clown your deal or tell you how great you did, patreon.com/South Harmon. $5 a month get you in the door, get you access to the Completed Trades Show channel portion. Also, like Mike said, if you're watching this far, go down and comment. Let us know, hey, listen, I am here to the end. We want to know, are we just rambling with each other? We'll still do it, but it gives us a little idea of how many people are listening. Otherwise, we'll see you back here, same time, same place, talking more trades. We're out of here. Peace.